My opponent's proposed counterplan lacks mutual exclusivity with my plan. That is, because I never specified by what means or how long it should take for my total ban to be implemented, my opponent and I are essentially arguing for the same thing. As he states in his plan, animal testing is going to be slowly banned, thus implying sometime in the foreseeable future, his plan would include, as I suggest in my plan, a total ban on animal testing. However, even if our plans were not mutually exclusive, there are several reasons to prefer my plan over his. While I have proved the inaccuracy of animal testing and the dangers of those inaccurate tests, which include hospitalizations and deaths, he fails to provide evidence to the contrary. My opponent claims my plan would negatively affect the economy because it would impede trade with countries like China, who require extensive animal testing, but his own plan calls for companies to raise drug prices in order to fund more research. According to the Center for Disease Control and the Huffington Post, over 45 million Americans lacked health insurance in 2012, and 57.5 million more lacked health insurance for part of the previous year. That's over 100 million people, nearly 1 in 3 Americans, without insurance. If my opponent's plan were enacted, these already struggling people would not be able to afford their medication. Those with insurance would face much higher premiums and might lose their health care because they or their employer could no longer afford it. The suggested counterplan makes no mention of the ethical implications of animal testing, which I assume my opponent concedes to. Animal experiments can be used to treat animal, rather than human diseases, but that doesn't solve the moral dilemma of animal testing itself. Animals are not sentient, they cannot understand abstract concepts, and thus they cannot give consent to be tested upon. Humans may be experimented upon without their consent to create new medicine, but that does not make it ethical. Is it worth dealing with China if their practices are amoral? My universal ban could pressure other countries like China into changing their animal testing policies. Rather than a complicated cap-and-trade system, my ban would eliminate the need to raise drug prices and make far better use of limited government grants, all of which would be focused on creating and perfecting alternative methods of testing, which have already been proven to be cheaper, safer, and more accurate. After all, the purpose of science is not to stagnate, it is to progress and to innovate. Testing on animals has contributed greatly to science. That cannot be contested. But that word, has, is in the past tense. It's a thing of a bygone era. Rather than rely on archaic, inaccurate animal tests, the use of alternative tests will advance science and medicine safely and cost-effectively. Because my opponent's plan also features the eventual phasing out of animal testing, it lacks mutual exclusivity to my plan, one of the necessities for a counterplan. But besides that, it ignores the moral question of animal testing and creates serious negative concerns for the economy and the future of scientific progress. For these reasons, my proposed federal ban on animal testing is preferable to my opponent's counterplan.